Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Martinez. I am so excited to be here with Joseph Grenny and Tim Stay from the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, happy holidays.
Happy
Hi.
holidays. And we are right at the very end of 2021, 2022, right around the corner. And we are so excited for what the new year holds. You know, we recently had the entire team together from the academy and the village talking about what we are envisioning for this coming year. So, what are some of the things that everybody's really excited about in the new year?
Well, first, I just want to pick up on your comment about the holiday party. So we had about 30 of our leaders, not just from the village, but also from the Other Side Academy, people who had been living on the streets 5 or 6 years ago, who were in and out of prison and jail. And sitting there in that room, it was just overwhelming to see these transformed lives, to see people who are in careers now, people who are in relationships, a number are engaged to one another inside the room. And
Yeah.
it's just absolutely glorious. And so for Tim and myself and the entire village team, all we care about in the coming year is that the village starts.
Yes.
That people begin to come off the streets, that people begin to start a dignified, prosperous, wonderful, and safe life. And so beginning to build the village, beginning to start the welcome neighborhood, we can talk more about what that is, and getting this process started, that is what 2022 is all about.
I agree. I think especially as we've gotten some really cold nights recently, we've got snow, and it really drives us to think about someone living on the streets trying to cope with, all the challenges already of where to get food and but now how to keep warm, how to keep dry, what happens if if you're not dry, how do you get dry? um it's just the agony and the anguish and the despair of having to live in those conditions. It really drives us of saying, let's put the pedal to the metal, and so a year from now we don't have someone who tonight is sleeping on the streets. Someone in a year from now can be in a home that is in a supportive community and looking at a very different future. And that's what I see 2022 doing for us.
Yeah, specifically for the village. This year feels like it was about setting ourselves up to actually build the village. So what's coming in 2022 for the village, if all the pieces fall into place?
Well, the next steps in the process include us getting environmental testing done. So we have a land site that we believe is safe. We need to make absolutely 100% sure that it's safe. Testing is going on right now. And over the next 30 days, we'll have the results of that back, provided that testing shows that it's a safe and buildable site. That means that we can then go to the city council, hopefully in January or February. So one way people can help is by writing to city councilors, emailing them, calling them, and letting them know that you want to see the village moving forward. And that will matter. They will hold the keys to whether or not we get to the next step or not. And so that city council vote, we hope will happen in January or February. The next step is it goes to the mayor's office, and we have full confidence that Mayor Mendenhall wants this to happen just as quickly as we do. She's out on the streets and seeing the kinds of challenges people are facing in 15-degree weather outdoors, and doesn't want that to last a day longer than it needs to. Once we move past that step, we already have the wheels in motion for all of the site planning, the building architecture, all of the permitting process. It is already in motion. So we're not waiting and doing this sequentially. We're doing this simultaneously every place we can, so that shovels can break ground in March or April or May, whatever the fastest timeline is, when the city council and the mayor's office can move this forward.
And what we're looking at is a pilot project where we can do 50 or 60 homes and a few community buildings and show what we've been promising to the community and to the city and to the state, that what we believe about the culture and all all of the safety and cleanliness, that will be part of what we build here. And so we're looking, between 6 to 10 acres that will be this pilot project. And then if we can show and demonstrate that we can meet the commitments and assurances that we've been giving people, then we would look to expand into the full village in stages and in phases.
Yeah. And so that phase one is going to be so crucial because it essentially will illustrate to everybody, it will paint the picture that we can do what we promised we would do. So tell us a little bit more about phase one that we kind of expect to be built. Again, if everything goes correctly and the environmental studies work out and all those things, what that looks like in the next year. What is phase one going to look like?
In one word, heaven, but let me break that down a little bit. And so, part of why we're so giddy too is that we had a meeting last week with the first group of people that could potentially actually live in the village. And they have names to us now. They have faces to us now. And that's some of why Tim and you and I, Lydia, have this special urgency, because now we know who's waiting for this. But what this will be, as Tim said, is about 3 neighborhoods of about 20 homes each. Homes are between 250 and 400 square feet, but they're not what you might have seen on a website from some other state. These are self-contained, beautiful homes that any of us would want to live in. They have a bathroom, they have a kitchen, they have a bedroom, they have a little entertaining area, living area. And so they're a complete home, a beautiful place. In addition, will be a couple of multi-purpose buildings. Later, they'll have more specialized use, but to begin with, they'll be used for delivery of mental health services, healthcare, as well as social enterprise. Do you hear bells? I think an angel got their wings.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
and so all of those services will be on site at a smaller scale in these first couple of community buildings, in addition to them being gathering places where we start building that sense of community. But the first social enterprise will be launched, and Tim can talk to us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so we're expecting each of the residents to pay rent in the village, and some will be able to have sources of income, maybe Social Security disability income, maybe other sources that they have. But if they don't, we will have opportunities for them to work at on-site social enterprises, so they don't have to catch a bus or figure out transportation. They can just walk across the village and be able to be employed, receive a paycheck, be able to pay the rent, and have money left over depending on the amount of hours that they work. And we're setting it up so it can be variable. If someone only has the capacity to work a few hours a day, there'll be a place for them. If someone wants a full-time employment, there'll be a place for them. And we'll have varying degrees of complexity. And so some with some mental health challenges, we're planning to have employment that those with mental health challenges can participate and find a way to be productive. And that'll be a big part of our culture, is encouraging people. And if someone's already getting income and they want to generate more and be able to have more of the niceties of life, they can do that as well. And if someone wants to work outside in some third-party entity, they don't have to work for one of our social enterprises. They're free to do that as well. We'll have on-site employment services to help them with resumes and job training and interview skills. Those will all be part of the services that will be provided on site.
Amazing.
Yeah, I can tell you too that while we shared in this meeting last week the vision of the village with some people who could be some of our first villagers, they were enthusiastic, of course, about a safe, beautiful living place. But when we started talking about the social enterprises, it was like somebody lit a match in that room. It just lit up the place. And we had 2 or 3 that wanted to linger afterwards, talking about their ideas and their energy and their enthusiasm to be part of actually creating something that has an impact in the community. So those who worry that part of the vision, that there's not going to be an interest in that, they're not talking to the same people we are. The social enterprise piece of this will be part of the identity of the village and part of what creates the culture that will make it a beautiful place to live.
The thing that I have come to realize through the academy and some of the other locations that we've visited is that there is a great sense of pride that takes place when residents actually work, when they participate, when they help build a community, when they're able to contribute, to themselves, their own learning, and also financially able to contribute. And that's something that's quite unique in this kind of therapeutic, social village that we are creating. So talk about that just a little bit, because I know both Joseph and Timmy have a lot of experience with those types of communities.
Now, this is one of the surprising things about what we'll both share now, is how surprising it is. It shouldn't be surprising. When you look at the conditions for happiness in any of our lives, let's quit talking about those who are unsheltered as a different species. Let's actually for a moment entertain the possibility that they're wired kind of like the rest of us in many ways. And that what makes all of us happy is connection and purpose and autonomy. It's connection with other human beings. It's being involved in a purpose that's meaningful, being able to create an output that makes me feel competent and feel like I matter in a community, and some autonomy in doing that. The ability to make choices and to be able to take initiative, and all of those conditions are what make the Other Side Academy work. All of those are absent in many ways, in many healthy ways on the streets, and all of them will be present within this village. And those are the fundamentals for human happiness, for human flourishing. That's all we need.
One of the things we've learned at the Academy is just the incredible amount of capacity and talent that our students come. And many times in their life, those talents and capacity and assets that they've had have been underutilized or have been utilized in the wrong ways for destructive purposes. And when you can turn them into productive purposes where they can add to that, building something of value, it's just amazing what can be done. And we're blown away all the time with the depth of skill and talent and abilities. And we fully anticipate that to happen in the village.
We had a comment the other day from somebody, and I'm sure it was well intended. They said, "I've heard the vision for the village, and it's noble but naive." And it's that kind of comment that we need to collectively prove wrong. The nobility of it I won't argue with, but the naivete, the Other Side Academy, as Tim mentions, is sufficient evidence that populations that many of us have given up on have capacity that has remained hidden sometimes for years. And what's required is just a culture, an environment. It's a community that helps draw that out of all of us. Heck, any of us probably were just one or two bad decisions away from being in the exact same circumstances. And you get into this social situation where it becomes self-reinforcing, and you look hopeless and pathetic, not because you are, but because you're lacking all of the community assets that help bring out the best in you. What the Other Side Village will offer is an environment that helps hold people accountable, work harder than we would if we weren't in an environment where people expected more of us, ready opportunities that fit to the capacity of the people in the village. And Tim and I have seen, as we've traveled across the world, countless examples of how this community environment helps to surprise most of the rest of the world with what we're able to accomplish. Our students at the Other Side Academy have produced $15 million in income in the last 6 years. And that's not an important measure of success, but it is a benchmark people ought to pay attention to. Those same students that everybody else would have given up on would have cost the state about $30 million to incarcerate if they had gone on to the sentences they otherwise would have served. So which of those two worlds do you want? And which vision do you want to be part of? That's what we're asking the Utah.
Yeah. I think that taking what was said about us, noble but naive, I would just change that to noble and bold. I think that what we are doing here is something that hasn't been done on this level here in Utah before. And it's bold, it's a little audacious, but it is something that with that boldness, I think it's a way to illustrate a new path forward. So talk to us a little bit about the Welcome Village. How are we setting people up to be successful and ready to move into the Other Side Village?
Yeah, imagine what life would be like if you were a teenager living in the basement of your parents' house, playing video games all day long, and then you went to Marine Corps boot camp the next day. You know, the kind of whiplash, the kind of behavioral and psychological whiplash you'd experience, you'd imagine that most people would wash out. Or what if they took you right from that basement to Navy SEAL school? You know, you'd be ringing that bell and asking to be let out of that place in no time. All of us need some help transitioning to a completely different reality. Transitioning from the street, particularly for those who have been chronically homeless, to an environment that is clean, that is sober, that is hardworking, that is self-reliant. That's a different reality. And any human being would require some time to be able to adapt to that. The Welcome Neighborhood will offer that. The whole goal of it is to set people up for success. It'll be a special environment with an oversupply of mental health resources, healthcare, as well as a strong cultural mentoring experience so that people can get used to getting up, to basic things like participating in a group and making decisions, working a certain number of hours per day, and all the sort of basic parts of life that might have been absent for some period of time. Now, for some, it'll be an easier transition. Some will stay for 2 to 4 weeks and will be ready to roll and move into a home and be part of the regular village environment. Some will require a little bit more support. And what we want to do is make sure that when they move into their home in the village, that they are as prepared as possible and set up for success. That's what the Welcome Neighborhood will allow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're designing and structuring this not just out of thin air. We're relying on the expertise of our partner with Valley Behavioral Health, but we're also finding a very rich tradition in the therapeutic community model of these modified groups for people who've been homeless, for people who deal with mental illness, for people who've dealt with a lot of these challenges. And what we're doing is incorporating and bringing those, 50 years of practice into what we're doing. And it's a modified version of what we find at the academy, but it still has the fundamental principles of a peer accountability that we think is so important and so critical to our model.
So let's talk a little bit more about what peer accountability looks like and will have there in the village.
So there are a number of key components. One is a principle that we call 200% accountability. This is what makes any family, any social system work. And most of us don't practice it in our workplaces. And that's why most of us don't like our workplaces. Because if somebody lets you down, behaves badly, violates a norm, none of us say anything until HR gets a report, and then it's way too late, and you either fire somebody or just put up with it. At the Other Side Academy and in the Other Side Village, we'll have a strong norm of people being responsible for the village with speaking up. This already happens on the street. In any encampment, there's already some social norms, and people already speak up and defend them. Now, they aren't always positive norms. They're not pro-social norms. They're sometimes negative, but there are norms. And so what we're inviting people to do is just sort of change the black hat for the white hat for a moment. And to speak up for things that actually are what they want to have in their reality and in their life. So pulling people up, offering verbal corrections, holding them accountable is a piece of this. There's another that we call the circles process. This is something that's practiced in many different environments with a similar population around the world. It's a restorative justice process where if somebody feels wrong, say somebody comes to my house and calls me a racist name, and I'm holding a grudge about that, and I'm feeling upset about it. How do I resolve that? This is a community where there will be a way for us to come together that's safe, that's respectable, and I get a chance to share my grievance, and the other person is required to listen to me so that we can restore a sense of trust and connection and offer correction to people where needed. This is something that will be practiced regularly in the village that will be a critical piece of helping us to maintain strong norms of safety and respect for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. So let's paint a picture of what we're hoping for, what we're hoping to have in place by this time next year. Tim, what is it that we're aiming for by this time next year?
Well, in a perfect world, if we could control things outside of our control, we would have homes built and people inside of it. That means we have to get through city processes. That means we have to get through the environmental. That means we have to get all the permits for construction. That means we have to then build and complete homes. We think it's feasible, and that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah. Joseph, what about you? What is your hope for 2022 and where you hope to be this time next year?
Well, just like you and Tim and I got to experience the night before last, I just want to have 60 more friends in my life. And so if we have 60 homes built, I want to have 60 people that are living there that are now part of the richness of my life, and I get to be part of theirs. I want us to have a social enterprise up and running that is a pride to each of them, that those who choose to participate will be able to say, this is mine and I matter in the larger world now, and I'm part of a community I couldn't have imagined being a part of before. So that's what animates me. The day after tomorrow, we'll have the Christmas party for the Other Side Academy. And I'm telling you, if you've never experienced the Other Side Academy's Christmas, you don't know Christmas. We will have 100 people in a circle and a celebration and a community joy that is hard to experience anywhere else. I want that at the Other Side Village next year. I want people sitting in that circle experiencing a Christmas that they may have never known or haven't known for many years.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here and for sharing the vision for the upcoming year. There's been so many things to celebrate this year, and it feels like it teed us up for the year to come. Any final thoughts, Tim or Joseph?
My mother was born on January 1st. So on New Year's Day, she's passed away, but she was born, it'll be 97 years ago on New Year's Day. She was born in a tent in the hills of Los Angeles. Her family was so poor that that's all they could have, why they tried to save up money to get into a house. You know, I think I'm just one generation away from that level of poverty, and I see the change and impact through her life, through my life. And as I think about the challenges and the hardships she went through, and know that there are people going through those same challenges and hardships, we can make a difference. We can change that. So in a generation from now, their descendants can have a very different future than what they're experiencing this New Year's.
Yeah. Joseph, any final thoughts?
I think Tim's message says it all. There, but for the grace of God, go all of us. And we're all just a couple of incidents, a couple of health crises, a couple of losses of our social support away from the same circumstance. So this is our chance to make the world look the way we wish it looked. And I think it'll be built on proper principles. It'll take a village to build this village. And we're already enthusiastic about the literally hundreds who have come together to provide in-kind, talent, financial support. And so bring it on, we're ready.
Amazing. Well, cheers to 2021, and here's looking forward to great things to come in 2022. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you, Lydia.